And voila, here we are, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to a suddenly broadcasted live stream. This is UDP and me talking about the last, hopefully, we'll talk about Mass Effect Andromeda for the last time as a funny little experience we semi watched and played, and then we could learn from it as never to talk about it again unless in passing, so that we can say, hey, let's never go that way again, Bioware. Or, hey, what company doesn't want to do what Bioware did last time? There's lots of ways we can talk about in the negative for Andromeda, just because it was just a mediocre title. I'm not saying it's a horrific title. It certainly had gameplay. It certainly had options to explore, and that was the intent of the product, to explore, just like Mass Effect 1. You had a car, you drove around, you picked up stuff, you shot guys, you upgraded stuff. That was in the game. That was what they said they were going to do, and they did it. So kudos to BioWare for getting that accomplished. And, voice acting, they got some good voice talent. Whether that was a good execution of the script is always up to debate. But, watching a third-person shooter RPG game with voice acting and strange dialogue scenes, I can argue as being more entertaining if it didn't exist. So I'm glad the game exists, and I hope that we can look back at it and say, you know what, that was a little bump in the road for an otherwise good company, and here's hoping they can get over their whatever problems they had, whether it was talent or technique or time management or management in general. We hope that BioWare can get past this and do a better product next time.
Yeah, because Casey's back on board now, isn't he? So...
He is definitely on board. I don't know how the hell that worked or why. After the franchise or the series was over, he went to Microsoft to work on augmented reality stuff, or was it their version of Google Glass? I think Microsoft's.
I actually don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know what came of it, but as soon as that one guy left, Casey announced he's coming back, and or rather, the guy who's leaving announced.
Aaron Flynn, was that?
Yeah, that Casey was. By the way, everything's going to be great now because I'm leaving and Casey's coming back, and you're like, what? Okay, thanks, Aaron, or whoever you were. So, yeah, I don't know. This is, I'm assuming Mac Walters is still there.
He's probably still in Edmonton now. I don't know what project he's going to be doing, though.
I can't see them dropping Mass Effect.
No, they're going to have to really kind of go, right. But the thing is, though, is that I think they're kind of hinging on Anthem now a little bit. So
they're going to have to, yeah. If Anthem screws up, I don't think BioWare is going to survive past Dragon Age.
It's that's 6 games in a row, really, isn't it? That they've had problems with if Anthem fails.
Well, it's yeah. If you're looking at pure sales figures, but they're also looking at microtransactions and how much money they can make from extending a game in the multiplayer aspect. And all they had to this is all they had to do was look at Mass Effect 3. That was a successful game in terms of, I don't know how much sales, but in terms of microtransactions, that was very well done. And people liked the multiplayer. So you could say, oh, microtransactions are bad, and I'll be with you on that. But for what it was worth, people were enjoying it. Yeah, it was buggy as crap, but they had an open beta, which I took part in, which was fun. Multiplayer Mass Effect 3 was arguably better than multiplayer in Mass Effect Andromeda for various other reasons. But it did not have jetting around and jumping up and, all that hovering and stuff you can do in Mass Effect Andromeda. But, hey, who knows? Maybe they'll learn from it. Anthem looks like it's Mass Effect Andromeda on crack. You're flying. You're just in this mech, so you're like twice as tall. You've got all this gear to collect. You're flying. You're flying underwater. It's just like, what? Next, you're going to be like phasing through solid objects, and then you're going to be like Vanguard charging or whatever. It's just going to be this massive arcade shoot 'em up. Yeah, with no story. I'm just reading the comments right now. Yep, it's going to be a shoot 'em up game with no story.
What's
Pretty
funny is that
much.
Drew's actually working on that, though. He's the lead writer on that.
This is weird. This is getting weird now. Yeah, Drew is back as well.
Yeah,
He's
because he moved
writing.
from Store to Anthem, which is why um, well, because he kind of disappeared off a while from Store, and then he moved back onto it. And yeah, so it's kind of like, Drew, what you doing here, mate? You're in a 4-player co-op multiplayer game, and how can you have a story unless it's just heavily cutscene based? How are you going to do choice and consequence? How is this going to
If they put him in
work?
charge, if they put him in charge of the whole shindig and he calls the shots, and like we keep or they keep our man Mac Walters as a side writer, as he was in Mass Effect 1 or the first game.
Yeah, because
Sounds
you
good.
need a good editor with Mac. One thing I've noticed is that Mac Walters has good ideas, but if you let him run wild like he did with Mass Effect 2, and you basically need to pin him down and kind of go, right, you've got 3 good ideas, mate. Right, sod the rest. We're just gonna have to trim it down, everything else,
We need, we
because
need how many characters? We need 12? What? 13? What was DLC? How many characters do we need here? Yeah, it's kind of funny when you look at people why they love Mass Effect 2, and they never say, "Oh, the story was great." Well, if they do say that, they actually mean a side story. They mean a side character or a squad mate that you really liked. And I can agree. Yeah, there were some good side stories there. So they have some strengths. They're just not focusing in the right direction. And I don't know if that's a problem of a game design thing where we have to say, okay, our game has to have X, Y, Z, and let's put some characters as on top of that, as opposed to saying, okay, well, our story needs X, Y, Z. How can we build a game around that? Because the argument is always the game comes first, and it is a game, obviously, so that's how you experience it. We were just chatting about Mass Effect Andromeda before the broadcast, and geez, there's so many things that I mean, this was the make or break. I think this was the make or break game for telling science fiction RPGs. Like this is the standard we're used to. And if you have a brand new galaxy, or not a brand new universe, it's the same universe really, but you take away the things that are really good from the old universe, like aliens or good or interesting aliens, and you turn them into a Saturday morning cartoon bad guy thing, like watching a GI Joe episode. Um, Something is like, how did that come about? And the only thing I could point to again is Mac Walters, because he's the guy who's in charge. He wasn't just the writer, or sorry, he wasn't the writer. He was the guy in charge. He
he was
was
the
the
creative
guy.
director. Yeah,
He oversaw everything and approved it. Said, "Yes, you have my blessing. This is good. Go for it." And you look at what came before, and you're looking at, well, the Protheans were kind of interesting. They were mysterious. When you found a relic, it was a big deal. And you were exploring to find out about them, as well as the Reapers. They were also mysterious. In this game, we know exactly who the bad guy is. We know exactly what they're doing and what they want, and it's stupid. It's just like, okay, we wanna control everything, and you're like, no. Can you talk to us? No. We're gonna kill you. It's like, okay, that's it. That there's no politics. There's no. Um, this is what's happening with what's that game? The Game of Thrones. I don't watch the Game of Thrones series, but that's what's happening in the latest season, where the bad guy is the bad guy. It's the White
yeah, it's
Walkers, I think. They have
yeah.
no.
Basically, got the undead army who's
Yeah,
now
they,
got.
they have no voice. There's no politics. There's no interesting things. It's just we fight the bad guys, and they're faceless zombies, literally, and that's it. There's
Yeah,
no depth. There's no. I wonder what Peter Baelish is doing. I didn't watch this, but I heard Peter Baelish died. The most interesting character out of all the books, the most conniving, manipulative, interesting fellow, and they just kill him off. And you're like, okay, there's something wrong when writers don't understand the essence of a story or what the main component of a story is, especially when you have an epic in a fantasy genre. Same thing with science fiction. If you don't understand what the essence of Mass Effect is, which is dialogue and talking to interesting characters who happen to be aliens, if you don't get that and you screw up the execution, even visually, I mean, that is a serious problem. So wanting to make a game about exploration and a new galaxy and doing all these other silly things like getting memory engrams of your dad on planets that he's never been to before, or tripping out your car with a yellow paint job. I don't really get it. I must be missing something about the DLC or the pack you could buy for $5 to get a new helmet. I don't know what that's all about, but
the Golden Nomad.
The Golden Nomad, is that what I don't know how many there were, but I don't understand that, and I'm really sad to see the jump to multiplayer as a focus, as opposed to telling just good stories back in KOTOR days. I mean, I miss seeing the Fallout 2, KOTOR 1 and 2. I miss that. So that's why I want Bioware to go back to its roots and see what they've done. And say, oh yeah, we can do good stories. We just need the right people to actually care about those things and bring them in.
Yeah. I think it's because they always end up biting off more than they can chew, because they're in this kind of bigger is better mentality. Like in one of the interviews, Mac Walters was stating that they had more voice actors from ME2 and ME3 combined. And I'm just like, no, there's not that many people, not that many of them awake. How can you have that many people like talking to you? It doesn't really make that much sense. This is the Andromeda should have been a nice closed off, almost isolationist kind of story about you being, at least your team anyway, being alone. And plus as well, Montreal really wasn't geared up towards, as someone actually pointed out, saying that they weren't really geared up towards making that standard of AAA gaming, at least where the market was going, the whole quote unquote open world design, and
yeah, right. And when you have a character who's completely customizable on the fly, you don't need all these characters for gameplay and story reasons. You don't need a Mass Effect squad who is one of each class to compare gameplay, and then you don't need all this voice acting. You need, I don't know, if you're going to have a mechanic with a brother-sister thing, then great, do that. Have the brother being one character who's a certain way, and you can build them that way, and have a sister who's a certain way, and you can build them that way. And they have like one skill the other one doesn't have. One's good at tech, one can hack things, one's good at biotics.
Ableist.
Yeah. I'm going to enable only Sarah to be a biotic. Oh, look out. I thought that would have been interesting, because they talked about the family, and you have a squad, and like, no, she's in a coma. You can't,
yeah.
You never get to play with her until the ending, because the Archon's a moron. And I just think, like, why would you, of all the things to do with this simple, easy, streamlined, like when you make a character, it's just like, okay, he's going to do this, and use him like that, and that's it. And you can customize that, but that's all he is. That'd be so simple to do. Sarah, the infiltrator, okay, she hacks and she shoots, great. That means Scott's going to be the biotic infiltrator. I don't know the biotic. What's the Vanguard? Yeah, Vanguard was a biotic and soldier. And if you didn't like that, if you choose soldier, then the other sibling becomes sentinel or something. They can do both. I'm trying to think of like the simple dynamic of having a two-person or a two-character way of solving problems. I think there was a game called The Tale of Two Brothers or something like that. No.
There's been a few games like that where you can alternate between two characters, and you need one to access certain things before letting the other one progress, and vice versa.
Right, Tale of Two Sons. That's the one. You got it. Yeah, I was thinking of Lost Vikings. That was the first one I could think of that was popular. Was that Blizzard? I think that was Blizzard. Yeah, that was Blizzard. When they did that side scroller, and you have the guy with the shield, you have the guy with the bow, and you have the guy with the sword, I think, and they would, the shield guy would block everything coming straight at you. The sword guy would, kill things that come at you, and then the bow guy would hit triggers or, stuff like that. That mechanic is not very easy to do in a open world shooting game, like, because you're coming at different angles. You can jump in the air. Everyone can fly for a bit. So it has to be something like hacking. Like when you played Mass Effect, the first game, you always brought Tally with you, because you're not sure how good your tech skill was. Because Caden was like, he was kind of half and half, right? So you always needed a tech guy, and that made total sense, because you're infiltrating a place. And you think, oh, well, the infiltrator class will do it. Well, you're not good at hacking everything yet. And Vermeer proved that. He said, oh, okay, I can't go in certain places. Great.
Hmm.
So management of skills and resources and being limited. I think having a tighter team would have benefited Andromeda, especially the production value. You don't need Liam, you don't need PB, just because it's just like Jacob 2.0 or 3.0. If we're who was the Jacob on Mass Effect 3? I'm trying to remember the names.
Vega.
Vega, was he considered Vega? Was he considered the Jacob of Mass Effect 3?
Well, he was more of a meathead version of. I think he was more meat than man than anything else. So
Okay.
yeah,
Hard to say. Yeah, it just tighten up the story, which tightens up the gameplay because you have streamlined characters that do one thing. Sure, customize the crap out of them, but make sure that they're that character. Like they were trying to cover their asses with saying, "Oh no, you can't customize your PB. Like, yeah, her gun is her thing. Her armor is her thing." And I'm like, okay, so she's really focused on being herself as a character and as a gameplay thing. Why? Like, she can't pick up a new gun? Like, what's stopping her? And I'm trying to list. Someone made a comment about, what's the worst part of Mass Effect Andromeda. I really can't narrow it down to one thing, and that's why I made the in closing, because you look at the innovation that, like, these are all great ideas. Everything they have, like you could brainstorm like crazy. It's just, how do they treat them? How do they execute them? And this isn't even about, the kerfuffle of how it looks, the lack of good face animation and whatever engine they were using to make that look proper or reasonable. It's about simple gameplay ideas. Why are you customizing the crap out of your car when you can't even give Liam a new assault rifle? He's still using the Ghost or whatever was it the Avenger or the Ghost? I don't know the names exactly, because whatever
probably
they did.
the Avenger.
Probably, yeah. I know in the trailers it was the Ghost, and then they actually released the Ghost into, was it DLC, or they just gave an update. You can now use the Ghost as a weapon to mod, but it's only for the player character. This is such a silly thing. I mean, we were talking about this before the broadcast, to how funny it was to put Rex and Garrus into Phoenix armor. They look like pink Power Rangers running around, and it was so funny. Like, someone actually said, "Okay, we're going to put white and red together, or a light
Pink.
rouge, which is actually pink, and have spacemen and alien spacemen running around in these suits and shooting. It's just so funny." And I mean, I don't know. It would have been cute to see that, some ridiculous outfits you could put people in. That's part of the fun of customization, looking ridiculous and getting away with it, and just looking like you're totally out of place. It's like, yes, I am the Pathfinder, and you have this ridiculous hat on, and it's like you're part of the Spanish Armada. You're conquering parts of Europe. You're like, okay, what the hell?
Reminds me of like Dead Rising, when you have like one of those like almost Lego man heads, and it's like but your clothing's actually still in the cutscene, so you're still wearing like, you got guys with like mankinis and things. It's just really funny. It's like it's trying to be like super serious, but your character's like still wearing the clothing from before. It's like, yes.
That was a problem with the meeting the Angara for the first time. I remember the trailer. They changed that. They actually had Scott in his spacesuit gear minus the helmet, but in the actual game, nope, you're in your Civic, whatever non-lethal
Poncho thing.
Whatever that was, a pulley or hoodie or
it was like
whatever.
a hoodie poncho thing. It had that big like flared like thing that sticks out, like as if like it's supposed to be deflecting something, but it's like, why would you have something that sticks out like that? I prefer clothing closer to my, I don't know. It just seems like one of those things where it looks like a cup or like a pelican beak, where someone's just gonna like throw something into it. It's gonna roll down his shirt.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, which was fun. Even in did the first game have species specific armor that they could only wear?
Yes.
They did.
Yeah. Torian, Krogan, Quarian, whereas Asari could wear human gear.
See, that's
So,
interesting. It's like, wow, I can get this really cool gear for my Krogan teammate. Let's use him just to try out the gear. Why not? Sounds awesome. Reason to pull out or Rex or Drac or whoever you got. Now you don't have that because they need to give you more and more and more customization for one character, which is
the mismatch in armor and armor pairs. So we were saying before, wasn't it? It's like you've got N7 armor, Angaran legs, Andromeda breastplate with a funky little beanie hat on top of your head. You're just like, yeah, I'm the Pathfinder guy. You're just like, Jesus, where did you come from?
I did like the fact that they put in the game. There was a guy who makes a comment about that, some random colonist on one of these.
If you wear the N7 gear,
right? I like the fact they actually brought that up, because who the hell are you to bring up anything related to being in the N7 program? Which I was reminded of yesterday because there was I don't know who made the artwork, but there's a picture of, I don't know if you remember it was a poster or the box art of the first game where it has Shepard in the front, off to the side is Garrus, and off to the side is Ashley. And they replaced Shepard with Scott. They put Cora on the side, and they put what's her name, the female Turian on the right hand side. And you could Vetra, yeah. And you compare the two posters, and it's just the most pathetic looking comparison. Here you got Shepard, this guy who's just like built, and he's like this model, and he's like, "Rrr." And then you show Scott, and he's like this young dude, and you're like, what? What are you trying to do? Who are you? Who are you, trying to be? Like, it looks ridiculous. And you're trying to make a game. You're trying to make a story with characters that are interesting based on their personality, or based on this amazing dialogue wheel, which has 4 options apparently, which two.
It's mostly 2.
People said that it didn't really matter in some cases which one you chose. They would say the same thing almost, or the reaction would be the same. And it's that's what Mass Effect is all about. It's all about the dialogue choices. And if you can't get that right, then what the hell are you doing? Why are you wasting your time with driving around in cars that have no weapons and mining? Like mining, like why even do that?
Why isn't there a mining detail for you to do all that stuff? It's like, hey guys, we're the mining crew.
Yeah, we need resources. That's actually a plot point. We need resources. We need you to go out and get us resources. And it's nondescript resources. We don't tell exactly what resources you need. We don't tell you how to get them. We just need you to get them. And then you get caught up in all this other crap. And it's just such a silly thing to toss over. If you can't unlock people from cryo because of resources, it's like, maybe we can get like one miner dude, at least just one
miner dude, and we've got a shovel.
Yeah, like here's a planet. We've secured it for you. Help us. You obviously need the rest of us need your help here. We'll give you anything you need. Can you please help us live and unlock some of your family while you're doing it? Oh, okay, sure. Why not? I want to live here, and you guys are starving. So yeah, let's actually start doing that. It's like that should be a big component. Getting resources, getting types of resources, opening up the Nexus people who are cryo, and building a community. That would have been, I thought that should have been, I think culture and community and the conflicts thereof would have been its own story. And you would always be jumping between that and exploration. And the exploration was just sort of expanding on that, like you do in a Civ game or in an RTS. You build, you explore, and then you master, and then you get better, and you unlock tech, and it makes you more efficient so you can do more. And then you have to run an economy, and then you have to make sure that who you're unlocking is special or for you. Maybe there's factions, but there's one guy in a faction who's a really good scientist. Maybe you can get him over to your side, but it's not going to work. Like that would have been like, whoa, okay, you got all this culture going around and all these arguments, and it's all focused on the dialogue. It's all focused on the storytelling and the choices you can make to who to unlock and what do they bring to the table, and do they bring problems? Do they bring solutions? That I thought would have been, well, obviously a lot more complicated, but very intricate, like this, that would be a game I want to keep coming back to. I want to, maybe I could unlock this guy, or maybe there's a randomization factor that this guy is gonna blow himself up after 2 turns or something because he doesn't like where we're going with this, the humanity first or aliens or whatever philosophy we've chosen. See, I'm coming from the background of Alpha Centauri, where when you're going to a new place, people actually talk and communicate. They don't just go to sleep forever until they wake up. When we get to our destination, they actually communicate and change their ideas and form groups and form friendships and have a life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see that conflict, like, hey, we hate Liam Grayson, or we hate Pathfinder Daddy because he brought us here and now we're screwed. So yeah, I wanted a lot more depth. And I knew I wasn't going to get it, but I at least wanted to see something. And there is nothing. There is nothing like that. There's no substance to any of these characters aside from, I'm the guy in charge, do this. I think you should do this. We don't like you. I'm a Krogan female. I think that. It's like, so what? Give me something I can agree with, and I can join. Give me like in RPGs, you join factions. In Planescape Torment, you can join factions. It doesn't change the end game, but it changes how people relate to you and the bonuses they give you and the bonuses you get in gameplay. Those are things I wanted to see. That's a very staple, basic thing in Fallout series, all the Baldur's Gate stuff. Well, not necessarily with factions, but just with friendships you can make, and they help you out.
Well, that's actually a thing I was actually going to mention, and I think I mentioned this in a kind of quippy post whereby, why the people rebelled off the Nexus, and that's because basically the Nexus people were just so incompetent that they just
I know. That's hilarious. That's absolutely a good point.
Because one of the things I kind of wanted to see was like, you would basically have like your different details, like, miners, soldiers, merchant, or, convoy people to be delivering things like that. But because they're all centered around like a very centralized, very council-like way, which is a very centralized government system, you've now got the working class, and now you've got an elite class. Now there's people are kind of going, hang on a minute, we're all busting our asses off here while they just sit around on the bloody Nexus doing nothing, shuffling papers. This isn't fair. And then the Pathfinder comes in and kind of goes like, hang on a minute, these people are starting to almost riot now. What the hell's going on here, guys? Why isn't what's going on? And so you have to try and maintain these groups of people by appeasing them in certain ways, but you can't appease them too much because you don't want to give them too much power at the same time, because obviously it's like unions, pretty much forming.
And there's no right answer. Like if you help one, if in one of your dialogue choices you help one of those factions, boom, you close the opportunities for another faction. These are choices which have weight, that have consequence. You do one thing, you can't do the second thing. That's what a basic linear or multipath story should be in an RPG. Now, we always argue, at least I do, it's like, well, why can't you do both? If you're a Superman or an Ubermensch that can literally fly in the air for short periods of time, why can't you do both? Why can't you say, I'm so efficient, I can give you what you want and what you want, and if you give me 10 minutes in this firefight to stop all the bad guys, I will prove to you I can do it. And that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see if you're this amazing character, which Scott and Sarah were, you should be able to not only save the Angarans in that temple thing, you could also blow it up later because you're just awesome. And you're going to stop every ship that comes through. You're going to set up defenses. You're going to do that because I want my cake and I want to eat it too. And if you can do it through gameplay, that would be the pinnacle of storytelling and gameplay options to say, okay, you have choice one, you have choice two, or if you think you're really that awesome and you could pull out the impossible, here's choice three. You're not going to get there in this playthrough, but you have the option. And you'll have guys who will play and play and play and fail and fail and fail until they either get through or they say, okay, I'm gonna do my new game plus, or I'm gonna do whatever to get that option. I think giving nearly impossible odds to a player within a story choice is the route RPG should be going. Just to say to because there's 4 styles of gamers, just to give to the overachievers who's like, yeah, I can do this. I'm amazing at headshots. I'm amazing at detonating biotic. What do they call? I don't even know the names anymore. What is biotic traps? Like you load up a trap and you ignite it and you explosion, whatever that's called. Give them the option to do that. Yes, it makes the story a little more complicated to write, but it's a third option in a binary choice.
Oh, I was going to mention actually when you were talking about that, that's already been done before. Bioware are fully capable of doing that because they have done it before in the past in Dragon Age Origins, right?
What's the example?
Red Cliff Keep with Connor, whereby, right, if you got 2 options, right? You can either kill Connor or you can sacrifice the mother to go into the Fade to basically confront the demon, which basically means either way there's going to be a death, or you go all the way to the mage tower, and then you bring the mages, and then they all gather together, and then you can, if your character's a mage, then you can enter it, or you can send Wynn or Morrigan to confront the demon inside its own cell, and then you can save Connor and the mother, and everyone will be happy. It's just a longer workaround.
I actually remember that. I do remember that. If you're not a mage, you can ask Morrigan or Wynn to go in.
If you've got enough influence, you can actually send Irvin as well into that, or Jowen, I believe,
really?
as well.
That is, see, that is how brilliant and how much love those guys gave those games, because they knew they wanted to make an RPG. And if you play Dragon Age Origins today, it is slow, it is clunky, it is long, and that's pretty much what we want out of our single-player games. When we play any of the Fallout games, that's what you get. You may not like all the mechanics, or you may not like how they change things, but that's what we want to see. I don't know how that works. I know with Drew and the Old Republic Online, I don't know. I haven't played that. I think Exlatalis, I know he did some playthroughs of that.
I played for that when it first came out. Yeah, I played for as played as light side Sith Warrior first. It was an absolute joke because it was like the character's supposed to be like, oh, light side's all good, but in actual fact, I was the most manipulative bastard on the planet because I was thinking like the way of how things like there was a bit where you're trying to get a new companion. I think it's she's basically like a Jedi apprentice, really. Is it Joanna? I think her name was, but it's like you kind of either go right. You can either kill the parents that would reveal her out, which is a very evil, like, oh, I'm going to kill your parents kind of thing. Or I basically went, hey, join the Empire. I'm going to give you lots of riches and you can live in comfort. You don't have to be servants to these Alderani people anymore now. I've manipulated them with greed. I've appealed to a base desire for them. That's not a light side option. That's very, but the game's going to go, oh, yeah, you're such a good-hearted person. It's like, no, I'm not.
I actually remember watching some of the... just to see how they did romances. I'm just curious how they do it online. And one of the options with a female, I don't know her, this is a while ago, female Jedi character, you can actually agree to having a child with them. And she's like, yes, this will benefit, this will make people happier. I was like, what? How did you manage to coerce a Jedi into mating with you? It's like, whoa, that's not part of the code. I mean, what? I thought Jedi were celibate. What's going on here? So I found if you bend and break some of the rules of lore, you have to be careful about that, especially when you look at Star Wars and what happened to the prequels and what the Force is. But then you look at what KOTOR did with the first game. I mean, you had Jolie Bindo, who was, what was he, the purple Jedi? What do you call that? He's not Jedi, he's not Sith, he's sort of in between, and he believes in passion, but he learns to control your passions, but he's not
very middle of the road kind of.
Exactly. And that's what gave those games substance, because no longer was it this juvenile concept that George Lucas came up with, what the Force is and what it means to be a Jedi. It's like, no. We're here to spread compassion to the universe, but we're not stupid about it. It's like, if there's a war going on, yeah, we're going to stop the war as best we can, but we're not going to be defensive either. We're just not going to sit there and go, like, okay, you want to kill us? We're going to come at you. We're going to win. You want to come again? Okay, we're going to win you. They actually take aggressive actions, and that's where Knights of the Old Republic 2 comes in, where they create a character who is in that scenario, And what happens to him? What happens if the Jedi actually take their philosophy and be practical about it, and they end up going to the dark side in theory, and they end up coming back and forth? And what ends? And then they took it a step further. Well, what if someone had to stop him? And what if we couldn't stop him? What do we do? And then they reinvent the lore even further. Say, okay, well, maybe you can turn off a Force user from the Force by using the Force. Like, how does that work? And they created Kreia, which is one of the best characters in storytelling for video games. You know, they just had ideas of good ideas. They just kept going and going to its logical conclusion. And then you have that conflict at that high level. And then you experience the story, and it's within the universe you love, within the genre you love, single player, all these other wonderful characters that support that. That's actually not a bad example. Knights of the Old Republic 2 had all kinds of side characters that you didn't even need. They don't have to be there, but they added to the background noise of what was going on. You didn't need a Visas Mar. You didn't need the sexy force sensitive chick was trained by a Sith, who, I don't know what she wanted. I can't even remember what her goal was, but she was there to showcase that the villain was really crazy, bad, psychopathic, vampiric force guy. And that was a perfect example. Yeah, we need to showcase how nefarious our bad guy is and why. And then you have, again, Kreia, the one of the best examples. She's like Jolie Bindo on going as far as you can go. Like, give this crazy. I think she was a Sith Lord. Yeah, she was the Sith Lord, and then she fell, and then she came back up, and she just hated the whole system. She wanted to destroy it all. And there's no practical way of doing that, but in her desperation, she finds a way to, at least in her opinion, how to do that. And that's a beautiful plot, and that's a plot interacting with the plot of the main character, who ends up being the hopefully I'm not spoiling anything for anyone at this point in time, but he ends up being the bad guy of the story, or the good guy made bad guy. And that's a very classic technique in storytelling, to have the ally who's the friend, or the friend who's the ally, or the anti-hero character. So that's what I wish I could have seen more from Bioware. Obviously, Knights of the Republic 2 is not Bioware. I know that. It's Obsidian. So, I can't always just default to Chris Avellone. It's like, give it to Chris Avellone. He'll know what he's doing. He's a busy guy. He's got other stuff to do. Sure, support his Kickstarter efforts. He's on all kinds of projects that are not AAA. So I think that's the general solution. We have to be wary of Kickstarter, of course, because sometimes they don't work or they're crap. But I wasn't a fan of Pillars of Eternity. I hope Pillars of Eternity 2 does well, of course, because I like those styles of games, but it just wasn't my bag. I think the story was kind of weak. So, yeah, I think that's the route we have to go now, is just look at possible Kickstarter projects, see what's going on. I think the latest one he announced was Kingmaker, something like that. And it was from, oh yeah, it's, I mean, there's all kinds of weird ones. There's like, again, there's another attempt at the, not necessarily the same franchise of Bloodlines, Vampire the Masquerade by White Wolf. It's not, obviously it's not the same, they couldn't get the license, but it's another attempt at doing a MMORPG with vampires and what have you. So those are always popular, but you need like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do those things. They're asking for like, 50 grand or whatever. It's like,
I think that's for the initial prototyping, really, isn't it?
I guess it's just like you wish for it, but it's never going to happen. And I wish we would just say, you know what's really good, and we could always go back to Vampire Bloodlines. And I love that series. It's just a beautiful, beautiful.
I love the dialogue and how they did the dialogue system and Bloodlines.
Oh yeah.
Because the best thing about it, because you had we had 4 options, didn't you? You had Dominate, which is a blood-induced one, which only certain people had, like Ventru and Malkavian. Then, of course, you had seduction, persuasion, which came in a variety of different flavors as well, by the way. And then you had intimidation as well. But the best part about it was that, and it's going to lead us on to Mass Effect in general, is that certain people couldn't be intimidated, certain people couldn't be persuaded, certain people couldn't be seduced. Like I think I had a Ventru female character, and I went to the Giovanni house, and the little pink line popped up because I was talking to one of the ladies trying, because you're trying to do like the power play within the Giovanni Palace to try and get under the into the crypt kind of area, and the little pink bit popped up, and I clicked on it thinking, female to female, it's going to instantly work. And she went, nope, sod off, I'm not interested in other women. And I just went, oh, right, well, that kind of backfired in my face, and that's what I love. And that's actually a bit of a problem with, dare I say, with Mass Effect in general, is that it simplified the conversation system a bit too much, in the sense of everyone agrees with a paragon and everyone agrees with a renegade, and there's no, I mean, Mass Effect 1 actually, at least with the renegade in that one, it was more human centric, whereas later on it became a little bit more Jack Bauer needs what has to be done. The changed the tone of the renegade system, really, because they didn't want to be seen as a bunch of space racists or something like that. And but it's just kind of one of those. Oh, there's nothing wrong with humans just being on their own, but I just would have liked it if, let's say, you met a character who couldn't be a Krogan. Do you honestly think diplomacy is really going to work with most Krogan? Nope. But can you bluff them? Yes, you can. You can persuade them in a certain way, and that should have been the dialogue tree option. You got intimidate, persuade, and then you got intimidate, diplomacy, and bluff. And then you pick one of these things that you kind of, okay, what are you going to intimidate them? How are you going to intimidate them with? If you brought a Krogan, you can use him or her to intimidate them, or do you want to bluff them? Do you want to bribe them and things like that? Just give me options in the dialogue wheel itself. Don't just kind of make the situation resolve regardless of my choice, because that's kind of makes the choices a little bit more mean that you're just hearing the conversation, really, that's kind of predestined, really. It doesn't really seem like you're working around, or like you're building a certain character that has a particular flaw, like you would do on, let's say, like a Dungeons, like when I used to play Neverwinter Nights and games like that. If you went down, if you were a warrior, well, and you came to, interact with the people, you were just above me hit man with sword. And but if you were a paladin, or if you were a druid or something like, then you could utilize your different skills. Like you could use diplomacy, you could use law, you could use intelligence if you're a wizard in certain situations. Things like that add to the role-playing experience, that make your character stand out. But in certain situations, like, in these situations your character's going to be good, in these situations your character's going to be bad. And I think Bioware, they fall into this trap of they need to appease everyone, so now everyone gets the same result regardless of what things that they pick, therefore making the choices and things that they make meaningless. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded one.
Well, that immediately made me think of Alpha Protocol. Again, Chris Avellone pops up, and the complexity, it's hard to do. I'm sure that with enough resources, I mean, they were still on a shoestring budget with Sega being the publisher. But you had choices in that game, and I will eventually have to start reviewing that, because, again, it's another game that you just love. It has a cult following, just like Bloodlines. And you get those options. You get the opportunity to be the Jack Bauer. You can be the Jason Bourne. You can be the Sean Connery of Bond. So, but that's them being intelligent, taking it a step further. It's like, oh, you're a spy. How would a spy react? Well, we have these options. So it's not necessarily bluff, although you can bluff in that game. It's bluff with a style. So it's a stance, or they call it. And that's hard to do. It's really, really hard, especially when you are trying to make that the focus of a AAA title that has 100, 200 people working on it, and you have to sell this idea or pitch it to your publisher or your producer, and he has to then run with it. So, I mean, it's such a difficult thing, but that's what we want. We want to see games focus primarily on the choices you can make. Which I think is why Fallout is so popular, not because of the shooting, not just because of the setting, but because of the way you can interact with factions and how you can influence them. And that's sort of the problems I also had with Fallout 4. As interesting as the factions were, they were pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Plain? They're just one-sided. There wasn't much depth to them, as opposed to Fallout New Vegas, where you got all these characters within each faction that have their own personalities and motives, and you could double cross them, and you can just turn around after you're 100 yards away and take their head off. You can do that. So the open world concept is not truly open world within those degrees. You have to contain it within a certain level, certain characters, certain options. And we've only really seen that quality that we want from Obsidian, from Avalon, and from Bloodlines. But again, it's also the same people who work with Avalon worked on Bloodlines. So, what are we gonna do? We either do our own thing, get a lot of people together who agree with us and who have talent, and do our own thing, or just keep critiquing the crap, keep spreading the message saying we want this, we want that, please. Now everyone's talking about cyberpunk in the story or in the chat. There's no information. We have no idea what cyberpunk is about. I cannot imagine CD Projekt Red screwing that up, or at least doing a half good job compared to The Witcher. I mean, The Witcher 3 is the gold standard for RPGs, or medieval RPGs at the very least. So for them to do a science fiction one, it's a logical choice, I think. They have a lot of money behind them. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of ambition to go from a fantasy story setting to a science fiction one. Yeah, I could totally see a writer or a team of writers or game developers doing that.
Well, they're working with an established IP as well, so they've got the guy who made
Yes,
Cyberpunk along with them, which is fantastic.
That's how they do their job. They got the license for Witcher from the writer. I don't know if they liked them very much, or the writer liked them. I don't think the writer liked them at all.
No, the writer hates the game. In
fact,
I think he hates video games in general.
Yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, they don't fool around when it comes. They're like, okay, what works? Oh, that works. Let's take that and make a game out of it. Great idea. Simple, easy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to figure out what a plot is. Not to say they don't know how to write or can't write. Obviously, they took the Witcher premise and then did their own thing with it. That they certainly did that, because this version of Geralt is not the same as in the books. That's for sure.
No, you have listened to the Polish version of Witcher 3, by the way, and the Polish language, obviously with subtitles on, because you need to make sense of what's going on. Geralt actually sounds a lot more sassy rather than that dry one that is the English one gets.
Really?
It's a bit different. It's like the portrayal of him is a bit more emotive than the English one. So I think it's just maybe just a translation.
Oh yeah, for sure. When you're writing in your own language, there's a huge problem. Even in the European Latin, Greek based languages, yeah, you're definitely going to have some Germanic words that don't translate well, or some Eastern European ones that don't make too much sense. Yeah, it's going to happen. Same with all the Japanese games, which, my God, we're getting a whole bunch coming in.
People die if they are killed. Oh, really beautiful translation.
Omni tools are tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Canada. Thanks for that English translation. That's from French Canada, right?
The French Canadians up in Alberta. Yeah.
Speaking of which, right? Because I was actually pottering around with the whole MEA thing, right? And I think I've mentioned this on Skype, but the whole idea of the mass relays all being, because the main problem was that they choose avoidance rather than confrontation with Mass Effect 3. But the thing about it, though, is just that Mass Effect 3 didn't just, the thing about it is that if you actually took it in a lore kind of way, it's all the mass relays exploding is actually impossible due to how mass relays work. Like they can't all explode, right? Because because you've got two different types of relays, right? You've got primary and secondaries, right?
Right.
The secondary ones are omnidirectional, but they only work within a certain cluster of, let's say, 200 light years within each other, or maximum, or something like that.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
But then you've got your primary relays, which are only point to point. So the relays being destroyed would only destroy that one cluster, really.
Exactly. You're right.
So because once it hits that primary relay, well, that primary relay is still pointing back to the other one. So how would that work? It can't. And then of course you've got the energy degradation of when you're jumping from one thing to the next. What would happen then? What would happen to the relays with the Citadel being destroyed? Would they all turn off?
Exactly. Like the way that the relays work is they align themselves with a sister or primary relay, and like the primary relay aligned itself with the primary or secondary relay, and you cannot obviously explode and shoot a beam off in one direction only. It would have to explode and then somehow align itself. I don't know how you align itself with two others simultaneously or multiple sister relays simultaneously. So again, we Mass Effect 3's ending is the gift that keeps on giving. There's always like, gee, this is impossible. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But the thing about that I love is when people try to defend it and they always say, oh, you just wanted a KOTOR ending. It's like, no, when I played Dragon Age Origins, my Grey Warden died. All I wanted was for the enemy to be defeated and then see an epilogue as to what happened over the mistakes that I made. You know, like what happened if, let's say, I didn't resolve the Geth and Quarian issue? How would they all, you know, would they still be fighting each other? Did the Quarians wipe out the Geth? Did the Geth wipe out the Quarians? What about the Krogan? Did they become the armament? That's all what I wanted, was just a long-winded Origins epilogue of just kind of going, yeah, this is the shit that went down after when the thing. I was fully expecting Shepard to die. I was expecting the Crucible to basically be a big giant bomb that would basically disable the relay and then disable all FTL so that it basically traps the Reapers all together. It's like, I got you now, bitches, and then or something, you know. I was fully expecting that, but no, we didn't get that at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we could just keep analyzing and going, how dumb do you have to be to approve this? How many people worth their ink as a writer would actually go, yeah, this is good. Yeah, this is at least passable. No, this is not passable. Reducing all your choices, reducing all the drama to death. Oh, he's sacrificing himself. That's going to really make people stop paying attention to what is actually happening. It's so. Oh, even now I can't even start. Like going back to that, like, oh, jeez.
It's like the Thorian, isn't it? Like the more you struggle against it, the more it just like cripples your mind. There's a Mass Effect 1 throwback.
Yeah, well, Thorian was... See, again, a Thorian is a great idea in a story about really old aliens doing really strange, big things, and having this one alien's like, wow, you know, I'm a Thorian, I've been hiding, and I know what's going on, and I'm going to keep hiding and all this crap. And you're like, oh, okay, so there's ways around. Like, there's hope. There's ways to break one's hold on indoctrination or whatever to survive this coming onslaught. So yeah, that stuff like that is cool. Like the Rachni, I thought, just, oh my god, what a horrible... There's another story that just went nowhere, and I mentioned that just because it's just such a big, like, that's the most alien in the Mass Effect series, the Rachni. They are strange, they're weird, they probably are. They're now green. Yeah, they're telepathic. They sing. They're tentacle monsters. They're arachnid sort of. You know, they're really strange, weird looking creatures. And the only way to communicate would be, use telepathy, use mind control, whatever. Being able to breathe on the embers of a dead corpse and then use them as a voice. Wow, crazy, freaky. That would have been, and it has that alien vibe to it. Whenever you're fighting the Rachni in that station.
Oh, and Novaria, yeah.
It was just like quiet, and then this alien drops down. It's like, okay, we know what you're doing here.
Oh, yeah, when you see the map and it's just like filled with red dots, and you're just like, oh no.
They spit acid at you. It's like, oh shit. Like that was, to me, that was probably one of the best alien designs for, and it's nothing original. It's nothing spectacular. It just worked with what the vibe of Mass Effect was, which was empty and big and quiet, and you're in space and it's deadly. It's like, boom, this is why it's deadly. So, and it wasn't like jump scare zombie shit, which we get nowadays in AAA titles. It was like, oh, there's an alien. Okay, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. What do I do? Okay, get the squad over here, hide behind this wall, use metagel, get the snipers going, whatever. Like that was a good idea, and of course the story worked well. And wouldn't that have been awesome if there was a version of the Rachni in Andromeda? The only thing that really made it through to Andromeda was sandworms, which were techno sandworms, or
those like mechanical things from like Man of Steel rip-off
remnant
kind of
sandworm. I don't know. It was just like, okay, I guess. I mean, I think sandworms are great. I love that surprise, annoying stuff in the first game, and to have a nod to Dune is always a spectacular thing. But it's like you have a whole world of lore to draw from, and to abandon it. Like, what if they actually escaped on one of these ships? I don't know. Let's say the Sari ship, because they're telepathic or whatever, and they managed to reprimand it, or not reprimand, but take it over for a bit. And that's why they're lost. It wasn't a flight problem. It was just literally the Rachni took it over, and for 600 years the Rachni were gestating and growing, and I don't know. Who knows what that would have done to the Asari? But then we learn about the Asari more. We learn about how they adapt and what they did, because they live long years as well, and they seemingly can make themselves look attractive to every species. How does that work? Would they mate with Arachni? What kind of child would produce that? That would have been an amazing PB character. Arachni-born Asari. That would have been, ooh, what kind of amazing exploration mind or personality would a PB like that be? That would have been interesting to me, at least. I don't know about people who actually liked PB, what they got out of her, but
well,
anyway.
I think the name PB in general is just something that you just don't. That sounds something you spread on bread than any PB and J.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What was I going to say now? The other thing as well I loved about the first Mass Effect was the like it was just like the world of feeling of danger that you're going, like you were investigating these new worlds, but there was always something there. And more importantly, there's certain missions that if you take Garrus along with you, and when you find the husks, like when you find like the colonies and like all the people have just turned into husks, Garrus himself basically says, oh yeah, we've actually encountered things like this before, like machine cultists who just like, they devote themselves solely to the almost like a machine god kind of thing, and then they become like techno infused. It's like, so you get the impression that the council's known about these kind of things for quite some time now. It's just they couldn't really pin where it's coming from. So you get the impression that this, Sovereign's been active for quite some time now. I think he's been active for like, what did he say? Is it like 5,000 years?
I think it was like 500 to 800. I don't know if it was that long.
Because he initiated the Rachni Wars, which was a while ago. Yeah, that's the reason why the Rachni engaged. Because when you're talking to the Rachni is like, we don't know what happened. Something spoiled that. Some kind of outside force forced us to progress on. So you get the impression that, at least I was getting, is that Sovereign's trying to make it so that only one species is dominant all the time. So that way it's easier to defeat them, because if you know how they operate, then you can build weapons to, the more, unilateral than you are, let's say, like the Milky Way right now, because you've got Asari, Taurians, Solarians, humans, which weren't supposed to be part of that cycle. It's just because they found the Prothean artifact, those darn Protheans. You know, so you get the impression that Sovereign doesn't like all of these different alien species all working together because he can't, or it, I can't say he, he can't really predict all of the outcomes. Whereas if it's just got one species like the Prothean were, you know, they were one. Let's go canon, right? With Mass Effect 1, the Protheans were from one world and they had one empire,
Yeah.
and then they expanded out. They weren't Javik. They didn't turn into space Jamaicans.
Yeah.
They were long tentacled faced creatures, as we've seen in the visions. You know, I'm just gonna put that one out there, Mac Walters. You know, I'm gonna take a imprint of that and just like gonna see me outside the Edmonton office.
Well, let's be honest with Mass Effect Andromeda. The Ket, or whatever that group of people are, they're just a bottom of the barrel version of the Reapers.
Collectors, really, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's probably more accurate. But it's just like we're like a really sad organic version of the Borg, and but instead of actually taking what's good from you, we just use your body as a template so we can make more of our stupid selves.
We don't believe in cloning. We don't like that.
We don't clone. We just take you, even though we probably have the technology to clone, because we have freaking spaceships that can go faster than light. We're not going to do that. We're going to subjugate you because I don't know. I really don't know. It's just such a weak. Like if they were taking human colonists or Nexus colonists, then it's like, holy shit. That's a
limited supply of people. Yeah,
we can't have that happen. That would actually be important. Not, oh, the Angara being taken. Well, that's bad. And yeah, we should probably help you out, but we don't really care because that's not our plot. Our plot is to make a new homeworld, and you're not really stopping us. It's not. It's like it's just a nuisance. They're just.
We'll go over there now, guys. We'll just piddle off to another cluster.
Yeah, it's like yeah. There's a big galaxy. Like yeah, they could do that. If they come by, we'll blow them out of the sky, like we always have. We'll blow them out of the ground with our guns because we don't actually have guns.
Yeah, you want my cat? You want mind just coming down here for a second? Right, get him. Because I think as well the cat, because they're a more human-faced enemy, they need to have a tragedy behind them. You need to have something that you can the reasons why they're doing it. You can't just have the enemy being dicks for dickish sake. That is completely. It's not even one-dimensional. It's zero-dimensional. And I think if I look back at, I think it was in Voyager where they had that species that suffered from a genetic degradation.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten the name now. I'm going to kick myself when I hear it again. But if something like that, like they needed to incorporate other species, that they were sampling other people's DNA to kind of go, what can we use to patch ourselves up? We've gone so far advanced in our technology that we've actually sterilized ourselves accidentally. And so the only way is for them to kind of go for this patchwork, pseudo cloning kind of methodology, and something like that. Like they're so dependent on technology, but organic species are still they're still highly dependent on those kind of things. Something like that would be you would understand why they're doing it and kind of go like, oh shit, and then maybe there's a little bit more negotiation with them, because they're still going to be around. This is just like a frontier expeditionary group, isn't it, that you're encountering?
There were so many attempts at making this story, even using tropes to make things like, the classic sci-fi scenario with bad guys that want to conquer things, to make that worthwhile, to make it like, okay, I can see why they're doing it. There's no reason why they're doing it. They're bad for the sake of being bad. They're bad to our friend, so we're going to be friends with them, and that's it. It's just this silly combination of nonsense that happens, and it's so like, this is not even something you would study in school to be a writer. This is just like common sense stuff. If you were to start writing, it's like, yeah, why is your bad guy dumb? If he's like this, if he's so brilliant, if he has all this technology and all this power, why is he acting like an idiot? Like it's one of those things.
It reminds me of Stargate Atlantis, where you got the Wraith, and it's like the Wraith, they're the ones that defeated the gate builders, the Lantians. It's like,
Yes.
but
Yes.
they can only survive a couple of shots from an FMP90. You're just like, hang on, it's like, excuse me, bit of an inconsistency here. I'm just saying.
All right, we just got. I didn't know that you could do this in the chat, but Ernie Velveeta says in its big, bright orange yellow colors, why didn't the Asari counselor in Mass Effect 1 offer to embrace eternity with Shepard? Wouldn't that have been a good way to verify Shepard's claims?
Oh,
Yes, I think I actually mentioned this in my original plot analysis of the first
Shepard's
game.
icky. He's got cooties.
Well,
He got space cooties.
I mean, when you have telepathic beings that could read minds, there's always a problem with verifying data that you don't have any physical evidence. The second problem to that is there is actually physical evidence. There's lots of it, and that which hinders the premise of Mass Effect 2. And we have to understand that's when EA got involved. That's when they were trying to make a blockbuster video game. And that's what I said. Mass Effect 2 is a popcorn blockbuster. That's why it exists. That's how it exists. And that's what ended up slowly happening to Mass Effect 3 with the microtransactions and multiplayer, which to its benefit was a good component. It made sense within the context of having a war. And you have these random missions that help out random places. Fine. You're a random red shirt that can be any other species and class. Beautiful. So yeah, there are all kinds of plot holes in even the first game or its continuation. So, and I've gone over this. It's very clear.
How does the Normandy pick up the Mako?
Good, very good question. If they could
I was
drop the damn thing, they have to figure out how to pick it up. That's true. Yeah.
Because I'm replaying through Mass Effect 1 right now, and I was kind of on this point going, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I was like, hang on a minute, how do we pick this thing up?
It's kind of funny because it's like a toy. Like this is a really sellable toy of this ship that can launch a car, and the car can land, and then start being a bouncy castle of fun with a gun turret on it, and then you have to somehow land again properly, and you have a ramp. The thing goes up, and I really hated what they did with that in the ending of Andromeda. It's like, oh, by the way, we can do that too. It's like, oh. Then why are you concerned with landing spots? You just hover at spot, drop the bay, and then boom, it drops out. You're done.
I think that was the exact problem with Andromeda in the sense of they wanted to try something new, but when the time came to the crunch, they realized we're just going to have to rehash. They had to play it so safe, like they had to drop a lot of their ideas, what they originally had, because it was just simply too late. I mean, Mac Walters only came on in the last 2 years, really, wasn't it? So what were they doing for the previous 3? Because it wasn't like how Casey approached Mass Effect 1, where, he basically went to the 2 doctors in a restaurant and went, right, this is the idea. This is what it's going to be based off of, the old like 60s and 70s vision of the future and all that kind of sleek design and things like that. This was actually done as a collaboration through like multiple like producers and other people at Bioware had. So it doesn't really feel like a vision. It was just a collection of ideas that somehow congealed together, really.
Well, we know that the lore of Mass Effect has been probably one of the most reworked and redone stories that I've known in terms of breadth and number of edits. So that brings with it a lot of questions that the fans would have, like why did you change this? Why are heat sinks a thing? Why did we bring them along with us in the 600-year voyage where resources would be a problem? All these ridiculous questions that, for the convenience of gameplay and fun, we have to assume those for gameplay at least, but not for the rest, not for story and not for lore and culture and stuff like that. So yeah, if anyone knows anything about the Quarian book that was released, or I don't know if it's been released yet.
I don't think so. There's
please get back
over it.
Yeah, please get back to me because I'm really curious. I think the Quarians are a fascinating group of people that were completely devoid in this game. And you just got to ask, what is up with these writers? Why would they neglect the most obvious tie-in, clearly the simplest, most obvious thing in doing a sequel about traveling great distances on a ship?
So it was the Quarians that actually found the Geth telescope, the mass relay telescope thing. Okay, that's a bit of a giant thing, but it's like the Quarians were kind of like crucial to them going to Andromeda anyway. If it wasn't for their information, then the project would just kind of go.
Yeah, thanks for the information. See ya.
Thank you for that. We're just gonna take this information. You wouldn't mind just handing me that letter, would you? Yeah, thanks. Get a screen cap of that. It's brilliant, you know. Yeah, thanks. We don't need that information. No, it's fine. You keep that. I always thought that book should have been, the one that they're working on. That would have been great if they would have kept online. Remember, sorry, I jumped around a little bit. Remember those old choose your own adventure books, like go to page
Yes
84. I think that's how they could have done it, and still keeping in with the Mass Effect theme. Because I used to love those books, especially with the old fantasy. I think it was called the was it Fable Lands or something like that? It was like
there was a
series
Time
of
Machine. There was Interplanetary Spy. I remember that series. Wheel of Time.
UK based one, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a bit of them. It wasn't too popular because these are really strange books to read. This is like during like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and other stuff like that, which were probably more easy to read. But it was for a specific kind of kid who just wanted to, read about science fiction or read about time traveling around dinosaurs. And so, but that's effectively what these games are. You have these as a basis, and then you have to limit those choices so that you can make content for those paths without doing too much. And luckily, that was done in the best example in Alpha Protocol, where dialogue was key and choice was a weapon. That was their selling point. Choice, your weapon is choice. So it's hard to make that stuff. It's really difficult. So I wish we had more games like that, but unless they're visual novels, it's really difficult. Now, to that extent, I think one of the most famous visual novels nowadays is the Fate Stay Night series, which is a Japanese visual novel, which has just blown up in Japan. I mean, the recent movie came out called Heaven's Feel. Again, this is all anime. This is all manga style art, where you have the third path. They took, like, the way you play this game is you have the first path and you play it to its extent, and then that opens up a second path. So you replay the game and you're allowed to do that path, and that opens up the third path. And that's what this movie is about. This is the third path that just came out last month. And it's about, this is a very simple thing to do. You have historical examples of heroes that come back to the present day to fight this mage war, and you're reinventing the past. This is nothing new, but you give it that sort of appeal to adolescents or people who love that art style, with, of course, the Japanese mannerisms and anime and all the wonders of anime. And you get a hit, and it has all kinds of other offshoot games, anime, mangas, just all over the place. So we would have to see something on that level from the fans. It would be a renaissance, really, of choose your own adventure storytelling, to EA to say, hey, maybe we should start doing this. EA won't do it. Obsidian would have to do it. Like, there'd be no other group, unless there'd be like an independent group that could do it. Start up their own franchise and start telling stories that could do.
Let id Software do it, and your choices actually in how you actually break the person's bones. Like Doom.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know if these would be any good. Like, I'm not particularly fond of these sorts of stories or that sort of genre, but that's if you want choices, that is what you'd have to see. Of course, the culture of media in Japan is way different than it is in the West. So you'd have to see, like, a guy online just making his own webcomic, or jumping into, I can't see him jumping into like Dark Horse Comics or getting an independent publisher, getting people noticed into that, whether it's Marvel or DC, which is highly unlikely, and then somehow translating that to the interactive medium of video games through Kickstarter. That would be really difficult, especially when we just had the Joe Madrea comic come to video game the past few months I've been playing. I haven't done my second playthrough yet. They actually have New Game Plus. It's the not Darkstalkers, Battle Chasers. There we go. Battle Chasers just came out a few months ago, and I mean, there was a joke. I don't know if anyone remembers this. This is how old I am. But there was a book called Wizard, which was in a big bucket of about comicdom. It came out every month, and it would have like a big part of it, like half of it would be the prices of comic books. And I don't know if they're still around, but there was a big joke about that Battle Chasers #7 would come out about the same time about Final Fantasy 36 would come out. This is how long Joe Madrea would take to make these comics. And the funny thing was, this was like, in 2001, 2002. Actually, no, this was before that. And around that time, though, Joe Madrea said, I'm going to stop working on comics so I can learn about making video games. And it took him this long. It took him over 15 years or 14 years to actually go to Kickstarter, get the funds, get a team together, do the artwork, get all the assets, and have this sequel to his comic book franchise that he created himself, which was so super popular. And he never had the time to do it before. So, it's hard to find these things. And it has to be a labor of love, of course, but it's the chances of it happening and to have a resurgence of, I mean, would Sega ever sell the rights to Alpha Protocol? They could. It's possible. I would love to see that. I know Chris Avellone would love to see that. I know all the other guys at Obsidian would love to see that. But to have that kind of resurgence or to have that shift, unless there's a really big thing that happens in the game industry the next 5 years or 2020 roughly, I can't see it happening, and I wish it could. Anyway, I think we've rambled on enough. A few things people mentioned in the comments were, what am I going to do next? A lot of people are asking for the Dragon Age Origins series. Yeah, I wouldn't be against doing that. There's all kinds of DLC, and of course the Shale DLC, which I absolutely love. Shale is one of the best characters. Shale, I said this before. Shale and what's his name? Sten? Yeah.
Sten. Yeah.
Shale and Sten, two best characters in the whole game. The best characters, bar none. They just destroy every other character in terms of fun, entertaining, good drama. Just everything's great there. Alpha Protocol, I brought that up. I always bring it up. Vampire the Masquerade, the Masquerade Bloodlines. Metal Gear Solid series. Geez, that will take me years. That would kill me because I don't know. Some of the Metal Gear Solid series scenes I love, and some of them I just want to just walk around for 20 minutes after I was like, oh my, I can't. What was like, why? I might actually do it for the sake of it. A lot of people said Alan Wake. A lot of people said L.A. Noire. One of them was called Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. I have no idea. It sounds like a Japanese title.
Never heard that one.
Yeah. So those are my options. I'm probably going to keep doing my Planescape Torment. The problem with Planescape Torment is it's just like plot point. Not much happens. This happens. That happens. It's the stuff in between the plot points that matter. So it's kind of like, oh, he found the copper sphere. Great. Oh, now we have to go give birth to a new section of a city. Okay. It's like, nothing really dramatic happens there. There's no voice acting that we can really get entire scenes out of. It's just a slow analysis. I don't know if you guys are interested in that because it's kind of boring. Playing it isn't boring. It's just that kind of game. There's lots of dialogue. There's lots to read. It doesn't really make for good video as far as making videos goes. So I don't know. I think Dragon Age Origins is probably the next on my list for doing it. And I might, again, I'll jump into doing Alpha Protocol either. Actually, I should wait. I think I should wait. Yeah, Alpha Protocol it needs my full attention. That game is like, once I start playing that, I'll be like, oh yes, this is what we want. Throw in some vampires. Whoa, vampires in the Alpha Protocol setting. Woo. I don't know. That might be a little too much for me to handle. Yeah, gonna have to walk around the house a few times. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it. Special thanks to Exlatalis, of course, for all of his good work and his channel.
Enduring.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy who went through all those scenes. He didn't do any commentary. He made his own comments on side videos. He would do funny things like have pictures of Miranda scattered throughout the the recordings. I don't know why he was making jokes. It was cute, but yeah, it was pretty bad. It was boring. It was slow, and not much happened in that game. So again, special thanks to the guys in the chat. You guys, have been with me for a while, and of course, UDP, you've been with me for a long time. And
Not by your choice, though.
Well, I'm not chastising you for whatever you did. You haven't.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Self-deprecating humor,
Yeah. So
it's a very
thanks
British thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's where it comes from. Yeah, of course. So yeah, thanks guys for all your time. I appreciate it, and we are going to hopefully get started on another series soon. So I will see you all later.